this is where you're gonna be building your assistant. So this is the OpenAI Playground. If you've logged into OpenAI, now you know exactly what it is. So this is your playground. And where you need to set up your assistants is in the Assistants tab here on the left. So as you can see, I've already set up my MacBook Genie assistant. We're going to be using it, but I'm just going to show you how to do it yourself. So all you need to do is click Create, and you need to give the name to this assistant. So your new assistant, you need to add instructions. So instructions here is the same, it's exactly the same as the base prompt in normal GPT, and they act as the system prompt for your assistant. And you need to pick a model here. It's entirely up to you which model you're going to be picking. If you want your assistant to be smarter, then I guess GPT 1106 preview is a good option. If you don't, then I would pick GPT 3.5 Turbo 1106, which will also give you access to the new reduced pricing for the 16K context module. The important thing for your assistant is that you're going to be using the retrieval function. That is the function that it says enables the assistant to give the assistant the knowledge from your files that you have uploaded. So you need to switch this one on, and then with your files, you need to add the files that you want to quote unquote train your assistant on. Then you click save, and it creates your assistant. Now, we're going to do that because we already have our MacBook Genie, quote unquote, built together. So let's just have a look at what I've done to set up this assistant. First of all, once you set up your assistant, note the assistant ID, just in case you need it in the future. I think Pabbly will pull the names of your assistants automatically from OpenAI, but just in case you need to, just in case it doesn't, just take a note of the assistant ID. Now in the base prompt, here's what I have. So you're a helpful assistant whose job is to answer questions about using a MacBook laptop computer based on information from the user manual. Users will be interacting with you either in plain text or in HTML. Okay, now this is important. Remember, when you're going to be piping questions that users will be asking your bot through Heartbeat, will sometimes send these messages in HTML. Sometimes it will send them in plain text. So you need to warn the GPT assistant that the inputs that it will be receiving will be coming either in plain text or in HTML. Then the next instruction is you must respond in HTML as well. Follow these rules for the HTML in your response. Only the following HTML tags can be used, and I'm listing all these tags in here. Okay, why do I have this instruction in here? I have it because Heartbeat only accepts HTML with a very specific set of tags as inputs into its API in order to then display your messages in the actual community. And if you go to Heartbeat API, you will actually see that Heartbeat specifically gives you instructions in how to send rich text into Heartbeat and what tags are allowed. So all I've done here is I've copied and pasted the instructions from Heartbeat into the OpenAI Assistant. And OpenAI Assistant, provided that you're using something like GPT-4, will definitely, or I would say in most cases, use these instructions. Then the last bits of instructions here are avoid referring. See, I've completely forgot to use the preposition here, to. That's fine. Avoid referring to users. Oh no, actually, I didn't forget the preposition here. Avoid referring users to the manual itself. Why? Because the text of the manual is being fed to the assistant, and because I mentioned the manual earlier in the prompt, in the system prompt, the assistant sometimes in the responses would say there's nothing in the manual, or according to the information in the manual. Now, I don't think it's good customer experience for the assistant to always mention the manual, because I don't want customers to know where the assistant is getting its knowledge. I gave an instruction here that says avoid referring users to the manual itself, so the assistant doesn't talk about having access to the manual. The last two ones are avoid listing sources of your responses. So sometimes assistant would try to list or include the reference to the actual manual as the source of the information. I don't need that. So I'm giving the adverse instruction here, and then avoid linking to source documents. So this prevents the assistant from trying to include sources of the information, and that just cleans up the responses quite nicely. But obviously, folks, you need to play with this. Play with this, see if you're happy with the responses, and then you will have the perfect set of instructions for you. And then in the retrieval, so I've got, as you can see, I've uploaded the MacBook instructions manual. I just found whatever was available online and plonked it in there. And that's pretty much it. So now that you have your assistant set up, you can actually play with it here in the playground. So let's go to the playground, and in here we have the assistant. Let's just create a new thread. Now here, as you can see, you can pick your assistant or you can create another one. So we're just going to pick the one that's already been created. We're going to leave everything in here exactly as it is. And let's just add a message. So let's say, how do I adjust this of the screen? Surely a MacBook manual will have a response to that. And let's click run. Now, see what's happening here. On the right, the playground is showing to you the steps that it's taking to generate a response to this question. Okay, so as you can see, the MacBook Genie created a response in HTML, which is, it doesn't read well here, but it will read well perfectly in Heartbeat, because this is exactly the kind of output that Heartbeat will need. So what did the Genie responded? It said to adjust the brightness of the screen, you can use the blah, 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 the keys. Okay, so it pulled some information from the files, from the file that are attached to it, but how did it actually work? So here, the logs on the right, they show you exactly what requests the playground did, this web interface sent to the API. So the first API request was to create a thread, okay? Because this is a new thread, it created a new thread. Then it added a message to the thread, which is another API call. So folks, we're going to be replicating all of these things, or most of these things, in Pabbly. So that's just giving you a flavor of how it's actually going to work. Then, once the message has been added, you need to run the thread. That is another instruction, another post request. And then when the thread is running, you need to, we're not going to be getting the run steps. We're going to be getting the run's status. And only, so as you can see, if we can expand this, the first response here in this run, let's have a look, status in progress. Okay, so while the run is in progress, the assistant is still thinking, is still processing all these, processing the messages. But then in this last bit here, get the runs steps. Sorry, I don't need to do that. Get the run status. Here it says completed. So as soon as the run status is completed, then you can go into the step of get messages from the run. And if we expand the data here, you will see is we have thread messages. So we have message from the user. That is our message here. How do you adjust the brightness of the screen? Yeah, let me show you. Content, text. How do I adjust the brightness of the screen? That's it. This is the message. Okay. And then, so this is the previous message. And the first message here, so as you can see, data, these are messages. And this is an array of messages, a list of messages. The first one that it includes is the latest one that's been added to the thread. And that is from who? From the assistant. And let's look at the content here. Text. And the text is actually HTML. So as you can see, there it is. That is the message. And that is the message that we will be piping back into Heartbeat. Okay. So now that what's going on in the background, we're going to be replicating this. So this workflow would map to our first flow or workflow that I mentioned in the opening presentation, which is create a new thread. Let me just show you what happens when we need to just add a message to an existing thread. So let's just say that someone responded to the bot and added a message to the same thread in Heartbeat and tagged the bot in comments. So we do need to tag the bot in comments here, but we're just gonna add another message. And how do I don't know, how do I switch the laptop? And then let's add and run the message. So it adds the message. Let me see, let me show you what it does. So the first thing it does, so this is where it starts from. It adds the message. Now, granted, there's only one button here that says run, but actually it's two actions, so two requests. One is add the message to the thread, which is this one, and then run the thread through MacBook Genie, through the assistant. The way this works is it is add a message. So we're going to be adding the message. If someone puts the message into Heartbeat, we're going to capture that message and we're going to add it to the thread with one request here. Okay. And then we're going to instruct through Pabbly, we're going to instruct the assistant to run the thread. And then we're going to be getting the thread, the runs status. And as soon as the runs status is completed, we're going to list all the messages in the thread. We're going to output the last one. And the last one is this one. It is this message here. There you go. See, that's this message. So hopefully in your mind, you should already be getting roughly how this whole thing's going to work in Pabbly. And I think this is the time for us to actually get into all of our tools together and start building. So I'll see you in the next lesson.